Blog Talk Radio.
Life is kind of a funny thing. If you believe it, you can have it. There's no stopping what luck can bring. There's no rules, everything is magic. If you believe in luck, life is easy enough.
You are tuned into With the Contest Queen, where the winning begins, with me, Carolyn Wellman. It's Sunday, April 18th, and this show is being recorded for Monday, April 19th. The reason this show is being pre-recorded is I'm very fortunate to be here in Payne, Ohio, with the Affadaisies. They began as a contest club over 50 years ago and were featured in the book and movie, the prize winner of Defiance, Ohio. Before we talk to these wonderful grand dames of contesting, let me tell you what we are giving away on this episode. Divine.ca has donated a soft and fluffy white logoed sweatshirt, so stay tuned to find out how to win at the end of the show. So welcome, ladies. Today with me is Dorothy Schaefer.
Yes, hello.
Maureen Knirk.
Hello.
And Alice Bruns.
How do you do?
So let's begin. At the beginning, for those listeners who have not read the book or seen the movie, talk about how the club actually began.
Began in Payne, Ohio, with a bunch of people that wanted to win something like a car. One of our neighbors had won a car, Betty White, and she tried to get us all to enter contests because that's what you could do is win a car. I never did. Alice never did, but she did. You started before we knew you.
Yeah, I started long before I knew you. I mean, I was well into my contesting career before I actually met you.
Yeah. It was a happy day when we found you.
So one of your neighbors, Betty White, who's no longer with us, won a car and convinced all of her neighbors to join her on this crazy adventure of contesting and form a club.
A limerick. She won on the last line, the limerick.
Wow.
And she won a car with that, so that was very impressive.
Do you know the entry? You could tell them.
Yeah, let me see. Something about when that last line. I used to know it. I could rip it right off.
Okay, well, you know what? We'll go on, and if it comes to you, we'll just interject it.
Well, the word it was to beguile there. To beguile in high style for a mite.
Wow.
Beguile was spelled B-U-Y in big letters in the word. Instead of beguile, it was beguile.
Oh.
And we always thought that's what won it.
And I think, that was appropriate for the times, but now that would be so dated it wouldn't be even a winner.
I'm sure not.
And I know of someone who won a contest calling Kix, the cereal, corn on the job. There again, it was clever, but it wouldn't work today at all.
Wonder what does win today.
That's a good question. Things have changed a lot.
I've tried the Saturday Evening Post because that's a limerick. It's a picture in each month. Well, every 2 months because it's a 5-monthly. But anyway, you have to write the whole thing to describe a picture. And I won first prize, which is $100. I did win once, and I won what do they call it?
Honorable mention.
Honorable mention. I won that once too. And of course, Denise in Wisconsin, who contests constantly, she's won a couple times too. But they're skill contests, as we know them, there are not very many of them around.
No, contesting back then was, the old 25 words or less, finish this line, or finish this rhyme, or name something, or...
But I'm 20-some years younger, almost 30 years younger than what Dorothy is, so by the time I got into it, there wasn't near as many anymore either. But I did win a car on BlogTalkRadio, and that was a skill contest. You had to determine history heroes, 20 they gave you blurbs of what rock and roll stars had said, and then you had to determine which rock and roll star said what line. And it was like they would call every so often, usually about once an hour, to figure out. They'd call somebody or have a call in, one or the other, and that person would get to guess on one of them. They would just play that one little blurb, which would maybe be a sentence. And then when they got identified, you could write that down and you'd have record of it. And then at the end, you had to send all 20 of them in. And, well, it was supposedly the one that got the most, but if you didn't get all of them, you didn't have a chance. So I did get them all, but it was like staying up all night and stuff a lot of times. I mean, I was like a zombie by the time I got done, because I had the radio by my bed, because they even had call-ins in the middle of the night. And if somebody identified it while, that night, and I didn't know it, then I wouldn't have had a chance. So at the end of the contest, then when I did get them all, I sent in somewhere probably between 500 and 1,000 entries, because I had entered some of their contests before and sent in 100, and I didn't win. And I thought, I put all this effort into it, I'm going to put some money into it. So I spent probably $100 or more at that time on postage and a lot of effort, obviously, writing out the cards. And I did use photocopies on some of them, but I did end up winning finally. It was a Fiat Spider convertible.
Nice. Well, that's a lot of work. It was worth having the car.
Yeah, it was.
Now, did you keep
I
the
kept
car?
it for 3 weeks, and then I sold it. And I was a bit perturbed with the radio station, because the sticker price on it was $7,000, but I sold it for $5,200. Now, this is in 1978, so imagine buying a car for that now. But anyways, they sent me a W-2 form for the complete sticker price of $7,000, even though I sold it for the much less amount. And they had titled it and they had driven it, so it was a used car, and so I had to pay taxes on the $7,000. And I complained to them, but they said, well, you can claim whatever you want to. Well, of course I couldn't, because they sent me the W-2 form, or 1099, whatever it was, that had the other amount. And if I'd have put a different amount down, I would have been audited on my taxes, and we didn't want to go through that.
Oh, well. It was good, though.
It was a wonderful thing to win, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, so it's changed. The contests now are either essays, or they are,
they want pictures.
There's videos, they have multiple entry methods. They want you to, like, for example, Doritos ran one. They called it Viralocity. You had to name the Doritos, and then you had to use the internet to get as many votes as you could. The person who got the most votes would win, which I don't think is very fair, because their name wouldn't be good. But I'm seeing more and more judged contests come back, where you have to do a video or a picture or an essay and submit it, and then it is in fact judged the way the contests used to be. And they have criteria right in the rules, 30% for originality, 30% for creativity.
Do that.
That's what they used to do.
Yeah.
Well, every contest did that, and we'd study the judges. If we could catch on to, like, P&G wanted everything really simple, and
the styles of the judges.
Yeah, the styles the judges like.
If you could get someone else's entry and see what they won in a previous contest, what entry won for them, then it would give you an idea what that judging agency was looking for. But after a period of time, by the time I came into it, most of them did not print their entry, the lines anymore that won, because they wanted to keep it secret. So
they wanted to use it against
they would make you sign an affidavit. That's where the Affadaisies came from, affidavit, and daisies for women, but that's where the club came from. But anyways, you had to sign an affidavit saying that you would not reveal your entry to anyone. So that was to keep them from, first of all, that way that it gave them a thing if they wanted to use it in advertising, but it also kept you from, seeing what they were judging on or whatever. And another thing, I think, too, one reason was because a lot of people would write in and say, well, my entry was better than that one that won, so this way you didn't even know what won, so you couldn't say yours was better.
Yeah, see, that's the advantage of a sweepstakes, is
Right.
if it's one entry per person, for example, and your name's not pulled, well, same odds
Right.
for everybody, there's no complaining.
Right.
Well, you could probably complain, but it wouldn't do you any good.
Right. But I think one thing about it too, probably the complaining they got probably caused some of them to rethink even wanting to have the skill contest too, you know, because they were obviously doing it to get good press instead of bad press, you know.
Back in '57, when we started the Affadaisies, sweepstakes were a dirty word.
Oh, it still is for me. I don't enjoy
I
sweepstakes at all.
but it's no fun. What do you get out
No.
of it? Just print your name. But it's the idea that, well, maybe today I'll hear from them. Maybe I'll win something. And
Well,
I still have that feeling.
It's changing now again, because sweepstakes were just fill it out by hand and mail it in, and then it went to online where it was still fill it out, but it was on the computer. And now they're combining the online kind of with the old school, but with modern technology. So they have contests where you go online and you register, and then you play a game, or you get one entry for just entering. And then if you submit a recipe, for example, it was a food product, if you submit a recipe, you get another 5 entries. And if you refer your friends, you might get another 10 entries. And then if you do something else, you get... So they keep you engaged with the process.
Mechanics.
So they're kind of tying sweepstakes in with contests together. They're kind of combining the different things. And then they have different places you can enter. So there's one where you put your name in, and then if you put it on Facebook, you get more entries. And if you put it on Twitter, you get more entries. And if you refer your friends, you get more entries. So they're using all the different tools. It's a lot different than coming up with a good rhyme and just mailing it in, and then coming up with
It was a lot simpler before.
Oh yeah, I just don't think I'm not too interested in doing all that sort of thing, I guess. And the other thing is, it seems like when I enter a contest or a sweepstakes, I should say, it's like your email address goes into this bucket that sends you all these spam mails almost. I just don't like giving out my email address for that reason. I don't like all these advertisements that I get because of it.
Yeah, that's why I tell everyone to have a separate email address just for entering, just to avoid that. But most good companies won't just send you stuff. Some of the bigger companies, because they spend a lot of money trying to run a promotion to get your name and address, and they're not just going to sell it or use it frivolously, because it's cost them a lot of money to build a following. But it's a lot of fun.
They buy each other's lists, I've always heard. That's why you get so much stuff once you enter one. Just your name and address will get you great gobs of mail you don't want.
I don't get anything.
And I don't mind getting mail so much at home, because I know it costs them something to mail it, and I can throw it away easier than going through my email and thinking, well, I got to look at all this stuff, you know. I mean, I might get 100 emails, and I have to look through all of them, even though I know most of them are junk, because there's 1 or 2 in there that slipped in that was ones I wanted.
So that's why we have separate email addresses. Yeah, it's a lot different though when you fill out forms, but I think a lot of people, especially with the cost of postage, are liking that it's going online more.
I would like it for that reason, yes. But I just really haven't gotten into it much because of the other thing.
I still hate the computer with a bitter passion. I still can't do with it what I want to, like that Facebook thing. I'd like to get into that, just because about 30 people have suggested I should get on it, and I don't know how. It makes me disgusted. But I guess you can't enter contests on Facebook anyway, can you?
Well, you used to, and now they have rules that say you can't enter on Facebook. So companies, what they're doing is they're announcing their contest on Facebook, and then when you click on it, it has to take you off the site to the actual contest site. And because Facebook was having a lot of problems with people running not so proper contests, so they made the rule that they had rules that you have to They did it in November. They rewrote their whole policy on promotions, and lawyers were talking about it, and
Lawyers.
well, because it's all ties into the official rules,
Right.
which is what you always have to read first before you enter.
And the rules get longer and longer.
Now, I assume that would be something that you did before you entered. You read the rules first,
Right.
correct?
It didn't take very long to do it. It would be very brief. Right, and they weren't real specific either, you know.
Really? Oh, now they're so specific.
Oh, very much so. I couldn't believe it when they first started coming out. The list of things that you had to know to enter that contest, because to me that was a bunch of hogwash. Should be simple, you know. Send the qualifier that you got out of the junkyard or wherever.
Yeah.
You too, huh, Alice?
Yeah, right.
Right.
So did you have to write a limerick and submit a qualifier, or would you just...
On those type, they could require a qualifier. I mean, they could require the actual qualifier instead of a 3x5. If it was a skill contest, they could require it. If it's a sweepstakes, they couldn't require it. Then you had to have an alternative form. But otherwise, I mean, it could be as even such as buying a Serta mattress. I remember one contest that was you had to buy a Serta mattress in order to enter the contest. But contest, if it's skill, is not considered a lottery. See, the reason why they needed the alternative was to keep it away from being a lottery where you had to pay to enter to have your name drawn. But the contest is where it takes skill, so it's not considered a lottery, so they were not illegal for that reason.
So what would qualifiers be in those days? Because now they're UPC codes, Universal Product Codes, which is a little barcode.
Or I assume for the mattress one, which I didn't buy, it was probably a receipt from wherever you bought it, that type of thing. But yeah, it was usually the label off of a product, maybe a can of tomato soup. You just send the whole label, that type of thing. Yeah, like you say, now it's the barcodes, but that was. At that time, there weren't barcodes, so
yeah,
it was the whole label.
The good old days. There's a junkyard down the road here, about 2 miles. Were you ever?
No, I never went over there.
Never went on those jaunts. Oh, we had such fun. We tromped through the place and got all kinds of labels off those little cans and bottles in there. People thought we were nuts, but we had to enter several times because we didn't know which entry would be pleasing to the judges. And so
it's like you didn't want 9 bottles of ketchup or something,
no,
so you might buy a couple bottles, but then if you wanted to enter more, contests, then you had to have more labels. And
so you went to the junkyard and got the labels.
Or asked friends to save them for you, or that type of thing.
Yeah, we did. We had all kinds of devious ways of entering contests.
Well, I always think when I see... Nowadays, it's the pin codes off bottle caps or labels. I always think those are winning opportunities being thrown away.
Yeah.
And I think somebody's just thrown a big screen TV in the garbage, or someone's just thrown a car in the garbage, or someone's... How can they just throw that away?
Well, they are throwing it away in a sense, but at the same time, you might have to enter 1,000 of them to actually win that, maybe even more than that. And some people don't have the patience to do that, or the time. Because it is time consuming,
I always think of it as a game. Did you guys think of it as a game? Like, was it a fun and an adventure? Because you were
what it was, the world's greatest hobby, I always called it.
I think it's an adrenaline rush when, something that you write or something that you thought of your own mind and worked on wins a prize. Even if it's a $5 prize or something, it means more to me than if I win $1,000 when I got my name drawn out of something, just because somebody liked something that I wrote,
That's how I got in the newspaper business. I just loved it when they print my stuff. I could read it. I had written that. They paid me money for that. It was wonderful.
So it was mostly writing contests. There wasn't the photography contest or the...
There was some
type.
of that, but that wasn't what I entered. So I'm sure there were those type of, and there were cooking contests also.
Cooking,
But
oh,
most
Lord,
of what I did was to do with writing, either limericks or last lines, or just 25 words or less why you like a certain product.
And we discovered if you send in recipes, give it a really different name.
Really clever
Something
name.
Clever. And put just one item in. Sometimes I put in leeks once for onions, and I changed the name of the article or the recipe, and I went a mixer for that.
Ooh, I should get some help then. I have a good muffin recipe, but I don't have a clever name for
You
it.
need a clever name.
We'll talk off air because I don't want to give it away.
There you go, sure.
So, yeah, so it's not just coming up with a good recipe, there's more to it. So even nowadays, you still have to have some of the techniques. They don't change. You got to have
Oh,
a
sure
clever
you do.
name.
Yeah.
I just don't like to cook, and I don't cook anymore, so I'm not going to enter any recipe contest unless I can take the recipe and change it and not cook it.
I think they say you need to change at least 2 things in order for it to be your own, something like
2.
that.
I
At
heard
least
that.
2. That's what I've heard. I don't know whether that's true or not, but let's see, what was I going to say?
Sorry,
I've lost it. Yeah, but it's, you know, what I was going to say is now with the internet, it makes it so much easier for them to determine whether a recipe has been used before, because they can kind of, you know, put ingredients on or whatever to find, especially if you use the same name for a recipe that you've inherited from somebody else. They can just punch that into the internet and in the search engine and find whether it's original or not, you know, or how original it might be. I would think that would make them easier for them to judge.
It did, well, not necessarily judge, but eliminate the disqualified ones.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. But that's obviously a big part of the judging, is to determine what is original.
So change 2. Ingredients. So if you like to muck about the kitchen, it shouldn't be too hard to.
No, it wasn't hard back in those days.
No.
Well, I don't think it'd be hard nowadays either.
I would take a recipe that I'd never cooked and change a little.
Oh, that's what I've heard. They used to have a name for it, typewriter cooks. People would just go to the typewriter and think, well, now let's see, I can change this, and they would never actually try the recipe. So somebody said they won a prize for something, and they never tried it ahead of time. They thought, well, maybe I better try this. And they said it was the most awful thing they ever had.
And they won on it.
They won on it. So the
obviously
they must not have made it either. But it wasn't the top prize. If it had been the top prize, probably it would have been.
That's pretty funny.
Imagine, though, some of these they put into cookbooks, you know.
Yeah.
And if it was one of the lower prizes, then you know, it still might have made it into the cookbook, and
oh goodness.
Back in the good old days.
So just because something's won a prize doesn't necessarily mean it's good.
So we'll change it to computer cooks now, because everyone would just hammer it out on their computer.
Exactly. Yeah, typewriter's an outdated word, isn't it?
So really, now they have to, you know, we recommend that they test the recipe at home before they submit it, so in case they win.
It's a very good idea. Very good.
I know someone who became a finalist in the Pillsbury Cook-Off, and she at the last minute had suggested drizzling caramel on top, but she never tested it. And so when she actually went to the bake-off and baked it and was drizzling the caramel on top because she hadn't tested that part, instead of looking like a pretty pattern on the top, it all just got soaked in.
Oh.
And so the item tasted okay, but it didn't have
the
presentation she had hoped, and so I think it kind of lost.
So she didn't try it at home even?
She had baked it. She baked it, and her husband said, "Oh, these are the best brownies you've ever made." And she went, "Oh my gosh!" And before I forget what is going on, she ran to her computer and wrote it all down. At the last minute, she just added this one decorative bit at the end.
Oh, wow.
So she had cooked it, and her husband raved about it, so they obviously were delicious.
But
But
you would
for the
have thought she would have
presentation-
tried it again and again and again before she actually went to the bake-off. You know, I would have, I think.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, that's okay.
We had
But it's a good
club members went to the bake-off.
I know we had.
Members.
I printed her recipe. I haven't made it yet. My husband's not a pork fan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He doesn't like pork and pineapple. If it was up to me, I'd made batches of it by now.
I wanted to tell you something else about the Saturday Evening Post Limerick. This is an old-time contest. It's the way they used to be. But you have to send your entry on a postcard. And how do you send an entry in a computer on a postcard? Is there any way to do it? Because I haven't found it.
Well, the only way online, the only thing I could think of is you'd scan the postcard and then email it as an attachment, or a picture of a postcard.
I think they're going to have to change the rules. I had a lovely typewriter that disappeared when we moved up here. I try to write, but I'm a rotten writer. I can hardly read it myself, let alone somebody else. I sent one entry that way, and I decided that was a waste of time because they wouldn't have been able to read it. But I don't have a typewriter to do it anymore, and I lost 2 entries this past week because I just didn't enter it, and the time was up.
You got to get a friend that can write it out
there
for
you.
you.
Go.
That has better partner up with somebody who's better handwriting.
Out, yeah.
I don't know who it would be. I've been looking, but everybody's got a computer, or they can write. That's
well, but if you have them write for you.
Yeah, I can get my sister to write. She has beautiful handwriting.
Well, there you go. Team up with your sister. You win a good prize. You split it with her.
Give her
half. It'd be a partnership. That would be fun. So what types of contests were your favorites?
Naming.
So here's a product. Come up with a name.
Like that drink that you make. Kool-Aid. Yeah, I had to name the pitcher. It had a face on it. I named it Sir Walter Jolly. That one was the top.
Instead of Sir Walter
Sir Walter Riley.
Yeah, so a lot of the naming contests were like play on words type of thing.
She's really good at that.
I like limericks particularly myself. A lot of times they'll have 4 lines of the limerick and then you're supposed to write the last line. So you've only got just a few syllables that you can make your word in. So you really have to make your words count, and of course it's got to rhyme with a certain word and all that. So it really gives you a sense of condensing words to make them powerful, because a lot of times with limericks I try for inner rhymes, so it's like, well, I can't think of an example right now, but, it's like da-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. It's like basically 9 syllables is what you've got. So I try to make the 3rd syllable rhyme with the 6th syllable, and then that's called inner rhyme.
Wow. And so then the 9th one the last
one has to rhyme with the first two lines.
Limericks are naughty. That was
the
history of them.
Yeah, that was the history of them, but they don't necessarily. But a lot of times they'll have puns at least. Maybe not naughty so much, but puns. They'll play on words, that type of thing.
A bunch of them I used to have. I've lost them too. People sent them to me.
The naughty ones. What was your favorite type to enter?
I like the naming ones.
You like the naming ones? Did you ever have one that won that you were particularly proud of?
I think I did, but I don't remember. I had that one.
I remember last night you and I won. We conspired on it. It was about there are some prizes that you don't win too. I can't remember, but it was such a cute entry when it got done. Oh, there's one thing that I do well. Look like Jane Mansfield in my padded shell.
Ooh, I'm going to guess that's for a brassiere company.
No. It was just, it was a contest convention entry, and you had to write a last line for that previous line. It says, there is one thing that I do well. Look like Jane Mansfield in my padded shell.
Here.
You maybe never heard of shells.
Well,
that's my son. Hi.
Hi.
That's Mary and John Saber.
Turn off a little bit.
And I think you know her, don't you? Carolyn Wellman from Canada.
So we had like a little commercial break and we had some visitors. Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Mary. I am Dorothy's daughter-in-law.
And she joined us, and so we had a little chat, and now we're going to finish the show. I love this. This is kind of like live but not live radio. So we were talking about what types of contests you like to enter. So did anybody want to add anything before we move on?
I thought of one of my entries, and we used to belong to a national contesters association, and I used to go to conventions every year. They'd have them in different states and everything, and we also had our own newsletter, and so the prizes might be $5, but boy, it was such a thrill to win, you know. And one of the contests I can remember winning, it was the first line was Davy Crockett killed a bar when he was only 3, and then you had to write the second line. And my second line was, and when he passed his bar exam, he got his claw degree.
Oh.
See, he was actually a lawyer, so I tied it into all that stuff. That's what I mean about making things concise, because it says a lot in a few words. Because, you know, I played the pun on claw and law, as well as bar and bear, and so, you know, that's what I like so much about limericks. Of course, that was a couplet. It wasn't a limerick, but it was the same type of thing where you had to, you know, do it in a short period of space, and I just really enjoy that type of thing.
Yeah, they don't do that so much. They still have judge promotions, but they're more essay based, or you have to submit some other type of.
They want you to write why you want your garage fixed, and they want 99 pictures of your garage, and then they want an essay about it.
Yeah, I entered that one, and I didn't win it. But,
we just tried to make everything brief and concise. Even your 25-word statements, you try to get everything in there.
Get as much as you could in that length of time, and you'd usually end up using the whole 25 words, and maybe when you first started you had 50 words that you had to trim down and, you know, whatever, to make it say as much as it could in 25 words, you know. But there's a lot of ways that a person can change words around, and one word can mean the same as 5 other words if you do it right, you know.
If you know your words, which she does.
And that's the trick. That's the trick. Well, that's also what makes it enjoyable, is you're playing.
Right. Very much so. Yeah, like I say, you get an adrenaline rush even before you actually win. Just in, oh, great, I really like how that turned out.
This is a great entry.
Yeah.
Great. So, for a little while.
For a little while, you think you've won first prize.
Right. Absolutely.
And you hope that the judges agree with you.
Exactly, and sometimes they do, and most of the time they don't.
Right.
Which is not much different than a sweepstakes, where you put your entry in, and most of the time you don't win either.
Right.
Right.
Well, you do win a lot more of the time than you do with the sweepstakes.
In percentage.
Definitely. I mean, I would say if I entered 5 contests, I probably won at least 1 out of those 5, at least some prize.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
You know, because there's a lot fewer people that entered the skill contest compared, you know, there might have been 20,000 that entered a skill contest, and only, I mean, and there might be 1 million that enter a sweepstakes, you know what I'm saying? So the odds are so much greater with the skill contest, because most people don't want to go to that kind of work to do it. And a lot of the people even that do it aren't skilled at it. They think they know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? If you're just coming in off the street trying to write a last line or something, you know, it's going to be very banal. It's not going to really say, you know, anything clever necessarily.
It won't attract the judge's attention.
Exactly. It'll get eliminated very quickly. So if you're a person who's studied a lot and, you know, done a lot of entries and things, you get more of a knack for it and more of a skill for it, so that you're a lot more likely to win.
Yeah, and sometimes they're not very good, because now I saw a video. There was a contest recently run, and it was for a video entry, and there was only 35 entries, and it was being judged, so your odds of winning were really good.
Yeah, they were terrific.
Here's my contest for you to write a name, that rooster. And what we used to do in contest club, we would do what? We'd use our brain somehow. We'd think up words that fit the thing. You know, if you're going to write a name for something,
call it brainstorming.
Brainstorming, that's what it was. And we'd all write it down, and then we'd pick up different ways to use those words. Like, that's a rooster, and it's a cock.
Feathers, comb, legs. I mean, just think of any type of words that might relate to. Yeah, cock-a-doodle-doo, hen, chick, egg. You know, there's a farm. You know, just anything that might relate to that, and then you can write all those things down on a piece of paper. And you don't even have to do any thinking more than that at that point. But then, you know, after you see it down on paper, well, I kind of like this word as a description. What can I put with that? And then, you know, you come up with something that is clever. And puns are a good way to go on that, you know.
The best way, really.
So, like, I mean, this isn't a good entry, but instead of cock-a-doodle-doo, you might say something like clock-a-doodle-doo. You know, like if it had to do with time or something like that. You know, you change it a little bit to make it so it's similar. It would at least reflect on the previous thing, but not be identical.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a good way to do it.
That's what we used to do. It worked.
So we'll play the game after we'll practice, we'll brainstorm after the show. So now for your chance to win the soft and fluffy sweatshirt donated by Divine.ca, send an email to enterme@contestqueen.com with sweatshirt in the subject line and your name, address, and phone number in the body. In my next show, we'll be following the news show schedule and will be airing on Tuesday, May 18th. Further details will be posted in my newsletter, The Winning Edge. It's free to sign up, and when you do, you also get a free ebook, Winning at Contest by Richard Dean. So if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you do so. So I want to thank you, ladies, for being my guest today. And if you have yet to read or watch the prize winner of Defiance, Ohio, get to your local book or video store today.
You got a pitch in there for it.
Yeah, I did get a pitch in there for it. It's an awesome movie. Oh, yeah, and something I didn't put down is that you must have a box of Kleenex with you when you're watching or reading the book, because it's...
Well, the book will do it for sure. It did for me when I first read it. And I'd already read the proofs of it.
Yeah, it's a good book. Yeah,
it's a very enjoyable book and movie, both.
Yeah. Oh, love it.
Right.
Oh, I can't tell you. I've read the book twice, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen the movie.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. So, thank you for tuning into With the Contest Queen, where the winning begins.